And I know for a fact that we are on record as having said that the composition of GECOM currently leads to it being too politically polarized. Mr. Vincent Alexander has gone on ad nauseam in the public space about the current composition. And so yes, we will say that we began that discussion in earnest at the level of the commission in terms of charting that way forward. Remember that we only had 5 years per se and 3 good years in terms of before the confidence motion. And so there is so much that one can do in 5 years. I think again the question has to be to the people who are in government for 23 years and why, if they were so earnest and needed and were so supportive of electoral reform, why they didn't undertake it. And I think it's a very unfair posture that people take, expecting us to have done so much in 5 years to undo the 23 years of damage that the PPP did. Thank you.
Adam, if I can add, there was a time when the composition worked for us. I would think under Dr. Suraj Bali, it was working pretty well where you had decisions were made based on compromise. Suraj Bali as GECOM chair would have allowed the two sides to discuss the issues, and then they came to a compromise, and then the decision was made based on that. But now we're seeing a full reversal of that. We're seeing the current chairman constantly voting with the PPP, almost, well, practically every single time there is an issue, the chairman votes with the governing side. And so that is exacerbating the problem there at the commission level. So we believe that the time has come for new GECOM chair and some real reforms at the commission level.
I think, Shanika, if I may, I think we are at the point where, as Guyanese, we have to decide. I think the media has to play a role in the direction that this conversation goes. Because the constant, why didn't you fix it when you were there, is doing a disservice to Guyanese. We are on the cusp of this development that will come from the island. We have to decide whether we are going to say that we want to build a sustainable and viable democracy. And so I really want to encourage the press to begin to help to fashion the conversation in that direction. If we continue to tit for tat, Guyana is going to go nowhere, and we are going to find ourselves stuck in this rut. The conversation has to change, and the conversation has to be, how do we begin to do what is in the best interest of Guyana and Guyanese?
Right, thank you. I see the hand of Mr. Mark Benchcom.
Yep, I have a question directly to, sorry about that. I have a question concerning, and just to piggyback on that last statement, that the press has a role to play, but it is not the role of the press to do political works for politicians. Outside of that, my question is directed to the Shadow Minister of Local Government, and also I have a question for Elson Lowe, Mr. Elson Lowe, and Mr. Mervyn Williams. First, for Mr. Mahipal, is with the host of problems that we're seeing at GECOM, the amount of irregularities and all these different things, have there been an approach to have a meeting with the chairman of GECOM to officially register the concerns of the opposition with regards to all of those irregularities, and of course the turning of the blind eye by the chairman of the Elections Commission? That's for Mr. Ganesh Mahipal. My question for Mr. Mervyn Williams has to do with engagement in the Indigenous communities as it pertains to local government elections. I am not seeing a heck of a lot of work being done in that regards. And so my question to Mr. Mervyn, concerning the economy right now, Mr. Lowe, What has happened with the $214 million? Again, I keep asking you this question because the PPP, Barajacto, and them seem to be very mum on that issue. And the other question again has to do with, we see the $41.6 billion coming out of the oil funds. That is definitely going to be used for elections gimmicks by the PPPC. We are already seeing that. What is your take, Mr. Lowe, on that? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mark, for your question, and good morning to all. Let me say first of all that local government elections are different from regional and general elections. Local government elections are really 80 different elections in 80 different local authority areas, 10 municipalities and 70 NDCs, Neighborhood Democratic Councils. Each one of those areas, they have a GECOM official that oversees the operation in terms of the requirements before they contest the elections. And those individuals are mandated by GECOM and by extension the law to ensure that the process is followed to the letter T. And what we have are different areas that have experienced different problems. And the problems that were unearthed by the APNU in these local authority areas were brought to the respective GECOM officials. And they were also brought to the knowledge of the commissioners that represent our interests at the level of GECOM. And to that extent, GECOM is well informed as to the problems. They were furnished with the credible evidence to support that indeed there were heavy forgery at the level of signatures to support candidates in the local authority area belonging to the People's Progressive Party. And the claim of Ms. Claudette Singh is a moot claim, and it bears no fruit and it holds no water, because it is not only in the public domain, but it was also relayed to the officers that are under her watch and by the commissioners that represent our interests. We believe our issue, we believe our position has been well ventilated, it has been well represented and well submitted to GECOM, and requires Claudette Singh to do the honorable thing and act within the best interest of this country, and to stop satisfying and stop being a poodle of the People's Progressive Party. Thank you.
All right. Regarding preparation for local government election in indigenous communities, let me first point out that the Indigenous Villages and Communities governance structure is legislated for in the Amendment Act, and their governance is at the level of the village council and the village general meeting, and their representation extends to as high up as the National Tushaus Council, which by law is required to advise the government on legislation and policy framework, among other things. That said, however, I welcome the question because it allows me to deal with a particular issue that is happening here, Mark. Region 8 has one municipality, that's the municipality of Mania. And within the geographic area, there are two Amerindian villages, according to the legislation, Mycobi and Campbelltown. So in the course of establishing that municipality, there were consultations with the residents of Mycobi and Campbelltown, both to the level of the village council and the general village population. The outcome of those consultations turned out to be that the indigenous peoples did not want to be involved in the life or functions of the municipality of Maya. So based on that outcome, those two villages were excluded from the boundaries of the municipality at their request. Now, inside the municipality of Madia, there's a community called El Paso Chumachimari area. And this is neither a satellite of any of those indigenous villages, nor is it an Amerindian community as legislated. There are 74 voters for local government elections in El Paso. Pauline Sukai, Minister of Amerindian Affairs, has some political responsibility for Region 8 for the People's Progressive Party, and has used her office to violate the legislation that treats with fiscal accountability. Pauline Sukai has poured more than $5 million in the settlement of El Paso in an attempt to buy votes for the local government elections. Pauline Sukai has given that community a tractor and trailer valued millions of dollars, also in an attempt to secure those 74 votes in local government elections coming up. Pauline Sukai's ministry has no jurisdiction in the municipality of Madia. If the government cares about the people of Madia, it will hand over the tractor and trailer to the mayor and councillors of the town of Madia for them to use in the best interest of the municipality. If Pauline Sukai and the government felt that there was a need for resources to be put into El Paso, those resources ought reasonably to be voted for in the budget for the municipality of Madia. Pauline Sukai has gone further. She has recruited 15 people in Madia, appointed them as community service officers, I believe they call them CSOs. They do no work except go to the airport and welcome Pauline when she touches down and takes her up. They get paid a monthly stipend for that. CSOs, as I understand them, are officers appointed by the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs to serve the interests of the people of Amerindian villages and communities. Madia is a municipality. If you want to employ people, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, but let it go through the payroll of the municipality of Madia. Pauline Sukai has, in the campaign mode, established a sewing class in Madia. Again, I say, Pauline Sukai, Minister of Amerindian Affairs, and the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, they have no lawful right to spend the money in the municipality of Madia. Those monies were voted for the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs and should be used for those purposes that they were voted for. And any resources which are believed to be needed by the municipality of Madia should be properly budgeted for the municipality of Madia. And Ms. Sukai should immediately cease and desist from violating the Fiscal Finance and Accountability Act and continue to focus on her work in the ministry. And later on, I'll deal with some omissions that need to be addressed by Pauline Sukai instead of meddling into the affairs of the municipality of Madia and misusing money, abusing the ministry's finances in an attempt, a vulgar attempt, to buy votes in a constituency in the municipality of Madia that the People's Progressive Party did not contest at the last election. I will pause there.
If I can add, other than, in addition to violating the fiscal and accountability,
Fiscal management and
accountability laws, there is obvious need for campaign financing legislation because of what we're seeing the PUP has been doing, as mentioned by Comrade Morgan Williams. Right now, as we speak at this press conference, President Ali should be on the Escribo Coast, I believe in Queenstown, and he's visiting Afro communities in specific. Queenstown, Dartmouth, Moruca, Phoenix, Moruca, Providence, NBC. And what they're doing there is to go out and promise people that they're going to share chickens and they're going to give contracts and these type of things to get the people up. So obviously they're using state resources to conduct their financing. And that is totally wrong. And it's something that we will have to raise when we meet with the EU mission shortly. Another thing they're doing is to put on their executive cap before these meetings. They invite people claiming that the president is coming or the vice president is coming, not saying to them what the meeting is about. And when you attend those meetings, it turns out that they have their candidates there, their activists there, and it's actually a campaign meeting. And at the end of that, they put on their party caps in the form of general secretary and that kind of thing. And they take these pictures of these photo ops and put them out there as their campaign meeting. When people innocently go out there thinking that they're going to address issues or they're going to receive something from the government program. So I just wanted to put that in.
Thank you. I think the Elton questions.
Yes, thank you very much, Mark, for your questions. It is important that we keep the issue of the missing 214 million US from Guyana's first audit of offshore oil expenses in the media, in the attention of
Sunday
the people.
Sunday, not Saturday. It's Sunday a month.
Yes, it's important that we keep that issue at the forefront of the Guyanese people's mind. We've said, the government has known these funds to be available to be recovered from the first audit. We've said over and over that it should be a criminal offense to be hiding these types of monies, and that the government should have come out a long time now and indicated that this is available and that effort will be made to recover these monies. In addition, though, we want to help the Guyanese people to understand that, given that this audit is linked to the media and that we've been able to see commentary from former Auditor General Woods Rand, we've been able to look at some of the issues here. One is what one would think a government that is aware of these issues that came out of that audit would do is to conduct a comprehensive review of those data issues, to make public that review, and to make public what it intends to do about that, those data issues. Now, we've also said that these types of issues and these audits need to be discussed in the National Assembly, and that would be a great forum for us to deal properly with these issues. But you're only going to do something like that if you, first of all, want to audit the oil and gas companies. Second of all, if you have the interests of the Guyanese people at heart. If you don't particularly care, then you first of all hide the results of audits. And second of all, you won't address or you won't take substantial measures. You won't engage in any proper discussion around addressing these types of the issues. And so that is where we find ourselves right now with 2014 behind the balance. First audit, but the second audit is similar issues. It could be as much, nearly $1 billion US, really, that could be in question. And it means that because government is not undertaken to improve this process and deal with it comprehensively, this is going to be a recurring theme. And so we've said again and again, this is really an issue that every Guyanese must pay attention to, because over the course of the life of the oil and gas industry, you could be looking at tens of billions of US at stake here that could either be lost or find itself in the hands that it should not be in. So that's the first thing that we have to say around that 214 billion US. The second question you ask, I think, is also quite a vital one, which is that as the government again looks to spend from the NRF, the question of whether those funds are going to be used for political purposes rather than the detriment of the people of Guyana. We recall that there's been complaints that the stipend that is for part-time workers that is being paid, that those same part-time workers are being pressured to either attend PvP events or to even walk in PvP, the parades that they have around the government election, that people are being pressured to be involved in those types of activities. We again want to stress that these monies belong to the people of Guyana, and people should not be being pressured to engage in political activity in order to benefit from those monies. But more than that, that this is really symptomatic of an attitude DP has, which is where they want to give Guyanese a few francs and try to compel them to support the government rather than doing things that are in the best interest both in the short and long term of people. And so we have proposed instead that it shouldn't just be that people are being provided with a part-time job that can't even you can't survive on that, but rather that we should see people being provided stipends so that they can engage in training activities and so that really will be able to improve their lives. That's why we have our 50 for 50 program, $50,000 a month for 50,000 people for training, student stipends for training. We're not just here to use people. We're not just here to try and force people to support us and pressure people. We want what is best for the Guyanese people, and that's why our programs build toward a better future for Guyanese.
Thank you. Mr. Jevon Pickering.
Good afternoon, everyone. Javon Vickery again, a standard. I have two questions. The first question is, during a recent engagement with residents in our faith, some in Georgetown Park in terms of North Renville and the West Renville district, many residents there are clueless as to who is representing them, and against that backdrop also, many of them have not seen anybody from this particular APNU, out there campaigning. My first question is, has the campaigning on the ground started, and what is the strategy being used as against other independent and the current administration? What sort of campaign are you imploring? We have like almost a month to the election. And my second question is, yesterday they passed legislation with relations to electric bikes. I want to know also what's the party's view on persons with electric bikes now having to have, not even required to have licenses.
Well, if I may take the first question with reference to the local government elections, you would agree with me that these elections involve local leaders, and each one of these local authority areas that are being contested, there are local leaders there going house to house to inform residents within their constituencies as to what are their plans, what are their intended actions in terms of representation at the NDC level. We must not be consumed into believing that this is a centralized system. Local democracy is decentralized. Local democracy must be respected as enshrined in the Constitution, and these elected bodies, the people on the ground in the constituencies, elect their local leaders to represent them. We are still, I think, about 40 or 37 days or 38, somewhere around there, away from the local government elections. And in all fairness to the candidates that are going house to house, hitting on doors, perhaps they're on their way to the areas you have mentioned. So it may be a little too early to say that they have not reached there in the interest of them going house to house. I can assure you that the APNU, their candidates are on the ground doing the necessary groundwork. They're campaigning at the grassroots level, house to house, because at the end of the day, when they are elected, they are given that mandate by the people in their respective constituencies to represent the people's interests at the level of the NDC.
Thank you. The electric bike.
The electric.
Just a minute. You didn't answer the other question about what kind of campaigning strategy are you using for this election. The other member on the panel had said that candidates are appearing on visits by the with the president and other members. But what are you currently doing as a party to for your own campaign?
Well, we are supporting our candidates. We are encouraging them to not go and fool the people. We are letting them know that their roles and responsibilities require them to campaign and to ensure that they meet their constituency and hear their constituency out. They feed us information that we look at the national level, but their participation at their level is very much important, and they're doing what they have to do in terms of representation and meeting with the respective people within the constituency. They enjoy our full support, and we are also there with them from time to time. I remember there was a launching in Bartica for the municipality of Bartica. There was also the launching here in Georgetown where we were present, our national leaders, that is. And from time to time, we are on the ground also with our respective candidates. I don't want to go into heavier details to talk about campaign strategy because, you know, we do have people from the People's Progressive Party that listen in, and next thing you know, they also do what we do as our campaign strategy.
I think in a word though, the strategy is localized.
Fair enough, yeah.
So what is happening is that each local authority area identifies its own candidates for both the proportional representation and the first past the post. So they, in each one of these LAAs, they put together their plan based on local issues, based on local requirements, based on local knowledge, and they are in contact with the people. They know the people in their constituencies, so they don't have to go and have lavish rallies. They go visit people and speak with them as they normally do in the course of their lives. And that's the approach, basically. So this is not a centralized strategy. It's not a centralized directed campaign. It is simply local government elections with a local governance flavor by local people in their local areas doing local work for local colleagues.
Can't get more local than
Can't get more local than that. With reference to your question surrounding the electric bikes, we will agree that there are a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses with reference to the legislation. There are persons who prefer that it not be regulated, and there are persons who prefer for it to be regulated. And when you look at the pros and cons, in the interest of safety, in the interest of ensuring that there isn't an abuse by persons who just use it as a regular bicycle on the road, and you measure accidents and all of these other circumstances that surround its usage, I believe that it was in the best interest of the nation for it to fall within the regulation and to come in line with the laws of our country. Many people can point to accidents. I have visited the island of Wakenham, and there are a number of persons who use these electric bikes. And I know it is very dominant in these country areas. But when we look at the manner in which it is being used, when we look at the whole intent of the road traffic rules and regulations, the risk that comes to car drivers, minibus operators, and all other vehicles that use the road in keeping with the road traffic regulation, it was necessary, in my view, to ensure that some degree of law be put in place for its usage. We must note that the law will now require that it be used by people who are 16 and above, and in any system of good governance, in any system of a proper society that wants to ensure that there is protection in all forms, will ensure that regulations, laws are made within the best interests of the majority and within the best interest for the protection and safety of its citizens. And I am sure in the long run, all Guyanese will embrace this move and they will see it necessary for law and order to take precedence over anything else.
I think this bit of legislation brings out that efficiency is which we run a country. You may recall that when motor cars came together with 3 wheels, there was a problem classifying them because motor cars were described in the law having 4 wheels. And then the ATVs came, motorcycles with 4 wheels, big problem. How do we deal with it? Who registered them? They went into the coal mining and forestry areas, unregistered, unregulated. And when accidents started to happen, the question was whether they were industrial accidents or traffic accidents. Then they brought the ATVs under legislation. Now, these electronic bikes, they're out, or electrical bikes, they're out. And we suddenly have a problem. How do we regulate them? So the rush bring them under the motorcycle aspect of the regulation. There needs to be a sit down and analyzing of what is happening. I imagine when the electric cars come, there'll be another run to know whether they're cars, because cars are described as having engines, motors, and so on. So how forward thinking, how forward looking are we in this regard? Are there special provisions, for example, for cost cutting for children, students in high school, for example, using these electric powered motorcycles, these electric powered cycles? So it brings out an efficiency, and it speaks to the need for a more programmed approach, a more focused approach to dealing with issues requiring legislation. So that's my 2 bit on this issue.
So I have a question by Mr. Adam Harris.
Yes, again, sorry. I'm going back to something that happened yesterday as my base. There was an interesting motion by Ganesh on speedy processing of motions and questions. The points sounded excellent, but that motion was voted down. Obviously, it seems as though the deck is stacked against the opposition, despite their best efforts. And this seems to be an unending problem. You have the same thing in GECOM, regardless of what you say, what you propose. For example, you presented evidence of fraud, and you get nowhere. It seems to be an unending situation. Now, how can that change, or how can any change to that kind of situation be effective, as Amanda said, to produce the kind of Guyana that we would want to live in?
The answer to your question, Adam, is very simple. For Guyana to grow, the PPP must go. It's very simple as that. But let me take the opportunity at this point in time, Madam Sessional Chair, to speak a little bit about what transpired yesterday in the National Assembly. I believe the Speaker has confirmed with what the opposition has been saying, and that is he has confirmed that he is biased, and in addition, he has shown the nation that he is unpatriotic. The standing orders of the National Assembly allows any member to bring a motion on the definite urgent public importance. And that is what I did. And I submitted that motion at 7 p.m. or thereabout the night before the sitting, which is well within the time frame for submission. Because there is a time frame, even though it says definite urgent public importance, it must reach the Speaker 4 hours before the sitting of the Assembly. And there were many motions under definite urgent public importance that were submitted to the Speaker. And what he did in previous times was allow the member who's bringing the motion to stand and make his case as to why it should satisfy definite urgent public importance. Our leader, Comrade Aubrey Norton, I remember brought a motion before, or 2 motions before, under the same standing order, and he was given the opportunity to expand a little bit to make his case as to why it should be heard, after which the Speaker will make his ruling. And of course, his ruling was to disallow. But the point I'm making is that on those occasions, he allowed the member to articulate his reasons as to why the motion should be heard. I remember that I brought a motion before under this very standing order also, and he gave me that opportunity to speak on it, to just build that case as to why it should be heard. Of course, when he ruled that it wasn't urgent or definite. I remember bringing one up. It was urgent or of definite public importance. This particular occasion, I wasn't even given an opportunity to be heard. When the Speaker spoke in the National Assembly, as is recorded and all over the internet, he simply said that he received the motion, and then he said he took note that the case was filed, and on that basis, the motion will not be heard. I stood in the House and on about 5 occasions attempted to get his attention to seek some clarity, and he did not entertain me, and I was the mover of the motion. So what he did there yesterday was to show me and show the nation how biased he is, and by not accepting this motion as an urgent, definite public importance, knowing that it is all over the country and even outside of this country this matter is being discussed. Because if there should ever be an oil spill, it will not only affect Guyana, it will affect Suriname, it will affect probably as far as French Guyana, it will affect Trinidad, it will affect the Caribbean, it will affect probably as far as the United States. And it is a matter without any doubt, urgent, definite public importance. I want to point out to the media that sometime back, we filed a matter in court with reference to the suspension of the 8 members of Parliament. And we submitted that matter to the court, and we did not receive a date for the hearing of the matter, nor did we know if there were judges assigned to the case. When the matter came up in Parliament, the suspension of the 8 MPs, a motion from Gail Teixeira, we stood and we objected for it not to proceed with on the basis of it being sub judice, meaning that it is being entertained in the court and should not be discussed elsewhere. The Speaker ruled that the sub judice rule has to be interpreted, and this man went and quoted precedents from this Parliament, the other Parliament, and all over. It's in the Hansard. And he said that because a date was not assigned for the hearing of the matter, and because a judge was not assigned to the matter, he cannot fit it within the criteria of sub judice, and on that basis, the motion will be proceeded with. That was Gail Teixeira's motion on the suspension of the 8 MPs. Here you have a motion where a case was filed, but there was no judge assigned to the case. There was no date given for the hearing. It was simply a matter of filing, and the Speaker didn't even budge to even consider his ruling in the previous motion. The Speaker of the National Assembly has basically confirmed that he is biased. He has confirmed that he is unpatriotic by not allowing that motion. It goes to show that he is in the pocket of the People's Progressive Party. It goes to show that he is not willing to uphold the sanctity of the National Assembly, the place where we are supposed to meet, that he is supposed to be neutral and ensure that the guidelines of the parliament is followed without taking a side. At no time was Raphael Trotman ever like how this Manzoor Nadir is. At no time was even Ralph Ramkaran, a card-bearing PPP member, long-standing PPP member, been in the belly of the PPP for the longest while. At no time did he behave like Manzoor Nadir, who's a stepchild of the PPP. It is very shameful, it is disgraceful, it is worrying, and it is a breakdown of the guardrails of our democracy, and it is something that is very unfortunate. Many may ask, then why are you still in the National Assembly with this type of behavior from the Speaker? But I want the public to know that at the end of the day, what is recorded in the Hansards of the National Assembly is saved there for posterity. And it comes back very handy as time proceeds. And it also adds to our act of communication with other parliamentary associations and other parliamentary related organizations. I can say without a doubt that we intend to write all the associated parliamentary organizations on the Speaker's behavior again. We will add to the number of letters we already have written. This one, I believe, is even deeper because he has shown it clearer how associated he is with the People's Progressive Party. Like I said earlier, stepchild wanting to show that he is a child there in the PPP. And we will also examine, at least we will have to meet to discuss this further. But my personal position is that the time is right for a no confidence motion against the Speaker of the National Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mark Benchcomb.
Thank you, ma'am. This is directed to the chairman of the party as it pertains to preparation for the PNCR's Congress that is supposedly, I believe, due this year. What are some of the preparations for that, sir, if at all any? The other concerning the shooting incident out in the Essequibo yesterday. We are seeing that this seemed to have become a norm throughout the country, not just in Essequibo. How concerned are you and your party is about this increase of shooting incidents? And the other has to do with the nomination or the election of a deputy speaker. Have you guys within the party discussed names? And if so, what are some of the names? Finally, for you, Mr. Chairman, there are reports that a prisoner, a high-profile prisoner, a murder accused, was released from the prisons in Guyana without a trial, without approaching the High Court for bail. And allegations are that person, Erwin Bacchus, is currently out of jail. If that is accurate, how concerned are you, sir, about that? And my final question is to Ms. Member of Parliament Desir. We learned recently that the Guyana Consulate in New York will be moved and a new location as of July 3rd. Hopefully some information would have been forwarded to the opposition, and with you having responsibility for foreign affairs, have you been briefed as to the reason why the consulate office is being removed from one location to the next, and what is that agreement or arrangement, please?
Okay, thank you for your questions, Mark. I will have some challenge remembering all of them. But if I can answer the first question with regards to Congress. Now, Congress is held every 2 years, so it therefore means that the current executive would not have completed or would complete those 2 years or that term in December. And so it will be for the CC to decide when exactly the next Congress will be held. Usually the party holds Congress in August. So CC will have to decide on the date and the preparations that will go with it. If you can repeat the second question. The shooting in Essequibo, yes. I'm still to conform we're still to confirm what exactly transpired there to get the specifics of it. But as it is, based on what we've seen on social media, we're very, very much concerned. Region 2 is a region that is very peaceful, is one of the most peaceful regions on the coast. It's a region that you don't normally see these kinds of activities. So for something like that to be occurring in the public space without any regards for the police or the law enforcement agency, it speaks volumes as to where we're going as a country and where we are in terms of our law enforcement. I would have met with the commander several weeks ago, seeking answers to, as it relates to what are the plans to deal with crime in Region 2. I was not very much convinced that there is a proper plan in place to deal with these hotspots that are arising in the region. And it speaks to the general governance, it speaks to what is happening at the top level. I think that over the last 3 years, there are a number of things that which would have occurred, which would have influenced the influence law enforcement in the country and influence the prevalence of crime in that regard. The with the suspension, for example, the suspension of the Police Service Commission, that obviously would have had an impact, and the promotion of ranks which who would not have been on the original list of persons to be promoted, persons, police officers who would have been under some kind of disciplinary, who would have been scheduled for disciplinary action, being promoted, friends basically of the PPP within the force, shady characters, so forth, being promoted. That obviously has an impact. Also, you have cases where we're getting reports that senior government officials are contacting junior ranks and passing instructions to junior ranks and bypassing the police, the forces structure. That also obviously has an impact on the situation. So there are a number of factors that are causing these events to occur. We would have seen just recently a friend of the government, and in particular the sports minister, beating a friend of the sports minister on camera, beating a police traffic officer who was trying to enforce the law. And so that is the kind of lawlessness that you would expect, and we've grown to expect under this PPP regime.
And you know, before we move to the next point, if I may add, this all comes back to the absence of the Parliamentary Sectoral Committee on Security Matters, which we have been calling for to meet the longest while. And since the commencement of this 12th Parliament, we have never had a meeting of the Parliamentary Sectoral Committee on Security Matters, which is chaired by Robeson Ben. And even in the National Assembly, we keep asking him for the crime prevention plan. And to date, Robeson Ben cannot produce a crime prevention plan. When the APNU AFC was in office, the Parliamentary Sectoral Committee on Security Matters frequently met, and there were a number of questions that were put concerning security matters. Silal Prasad, who was Commissioner of Police, appeared and answered the questions. Other security officers appeared and answered the questions to satisfy the requests of people like Gail Teixeira, people like Clement Rohi, people like the other members of the opposition then. And this deliberate act of the People's Progressive Party not to constitute and not to bring into effect these parliamentary sectoral committee for the adds to the breakdown of the democracy, for the adds to the People's Progressive Party running from accountability. It's a slap in the face of transparency. It is a clear direction of them wanting to go into a dictatorship, and it is something that the citizens of this country must not tolerate. And to circle back to that earlier question, for the Guyana to grow, the PPPC has to go. Simple as that.
I think there's
Yeah.
a question.
There's
on
the question and nomination of the deputy speaker.
Oh, yeah. Mark, you had a question. I believe you had a question on the nomination of a deputy speaker. When we would have met APNU FC as a coalition, and we have decided on an MP to function in that regard. But at this time, we do not want to release that name to the public. But we have met, and as a coalition, we have unanimously decided on who that person should be.
Understanding that you do not want to release the name of that person, any hesitation as to why? Because the public would need to know. And as soon as that person gets in there, can you say whether it's a female or a male? I got you, sir.
At the appropriate time, we will release.
I hear you, Mr. Chairman. But the final. Sorry, sir. Go ahead. Sorry about that.
We know how the PPP operates, and so we have to be strategic. We have to be tactical. We know they operate at the parliamentary level, and so from the moment we release this name, they do all sorts of things to tarnish that individual, and we don't want that kind of thing. And there are other reasons as well. So very soon we will. I can foresee that we will put pressure on the National Assembly, on the Speaker, to make that appointment, and we hope that our appointee would sit in that chair.
Thank you. But concerning, and I appreciate that, concerning the allegations that someone was allowed to leave the prison who was awaiting trial for murder, before Ms. Desir respond to the Consul General's office being moved.
It is the first time I am hearing of that report, but I wouldn't put it past the PPP. Look, this is a regime that engages in shady activites. They are surrounded by criminal elements. They have candidates. Let me give you this. Look, in that one, and you wonder why the president and vice president has to go around to try and boost these campaigns. On their list, there are persons, known characters that would have served prison time, and they find themselves on their list. You have persons who would have, you would know this, Mark, you have persons who would have been in prison and find themselves to becoming ministers and members of parliament. So I wouldn't doubt that there is a possibility that someone would have been released. I don't know of the circumstances, but it is of grave concern to us. We will pick it up. We will have to investigate it. We will follow up on at the next press conference. I'm certain if you come back, we will be able to answer more questions on it. But as it is, we're not fully aware of the circumstances surrounding that person's release, but we will follow up.
Yes, Mr. Benchcop, to answer your question, we were aware that Mr. Broderson, Ambassador Broderson, issued a notice yesterday indicating that the consulate will be moved. So I think it is East 45th, to 228 East 45th. And so we will be posing the relevant question to Minister Todd as to the reasons for the relocation, finding out issues as to cost and all of that other stuff. So you can look forward to some questions the next after.
All right, thank you so much. At this time, I'll take our last question from Mr. Garnet.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have a few questions. I notice regularly when I'm asking questions that I get signed out of the press conference. I'm not sure if that's a problem on my end or a problem on your end. And I try to sign in back, I'm not getting it. So what I'm going to do is ask all of my questions. I usually ask my questions one at a time, but I don't get to ask any other follow-up questions. So I'm going to ask all of my questions right now, and then you guys can go ahead and answer. My first question is,
Be on your first statement. I have noticed almost every time you're coming down to your last set of questions, you bounce out, and you coming back, you bounce out again. So I do believe it may be a problem on your end. We by no means try to bounce you out by any means. All right, I just wanted to note that before you proceed with your question.
okay, well, hopefully the problem will be fixed. My first question is, you guys spoke about the replacement for the deputy speaker. The member of the Joinder Party who was recently sworn in, Dr. Asha Kissoon, has indicated her willingness to be nominated for the deputy speaker position. Would the APNU opposition have any objection to her? And if so, can any reason be given? As question number one. The other question is about local government election. This is to Mr. Mahipal. The local government elections is widely known for having low voter turnout. Of this low turnout, many of the APNU strongholds are statistically known for having the lowest turnout of the lowest turnout. How confident is the party that they could improve voter turnout in its strongholds, even if as well as other LAAs, and what is being done, if anything, to improve voter turnout? Secondly, a number of sitting councillors in towns, which are generally APNU strongholds, such as Georgetown, Linden, and Bartica, are not running again as as candidates for the party. Can you say anything, shine any light on what I know? Mayor Raj came out to note that he could not run for another term of mayor of Georgetown, so he was not going to be on the list of candidates. But for the other members, can the party say what went on there and why they're not, even if they're not running for mayor, running for candidacy? My other question is to Mr. Williams. On Monday, the Public Accounts Committee, at which Mr. Mahipal was present, so he could verify this information I'm saying. The committee dealt with matters under the former Ministry of Indigenous Peoples Affairs, where from the Auditor General's report, it was presented that there were several cases across a number of years where that ministry signed contracts with contractors prior to the contract being awarded to a contractor. Can you say if during your time at the ministry you are aware of this practice? If why this was allowed to occur, what exactly took place that led to this happening, given that it's a procurement breach? Those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Garnett. If I'm right, the first question, Madam Chair, is
The replacement of the deputy and Ash being.
I think the first one was the replacement of the deputy speaker, but I think we have to point out that the long-standing convention in the parliamentary system is that the deputy speakership goes to the main opposition. And we have to remember as well that the appointment of Mr. Schuman was really an aberration and should not have happened. But what it did indicate is the lack of the PPPC's fidelity to proper parliamentary procedure. they will do whatever they can to deprive us of having a say in the National Assembly. And that's what they did, if you recall, with Leonard Schumann, even though we pointed out the long-standing custom tradition in any defense of parliamentary system is that the deputy speakership goes to the main opposition and certainly not a joiner party.
And if apart from that, if I may add, it makes absolutely no sense electing someone who is in parliament for 3 months, having regard to the fact that 1 month has already expired. But the voting trend has started with the goodly doctor evidently voting with the People's Progressive Party on a particular motion in the National Assembly as recently as yesterday. So you can't rule out any possibilities there, but I think you have to ask the question how sensible it is to elect a deputy speaker who will probably serve 2 months when there may be one sitting remaining. So I think convention should hold and that the main opposition should be allowed to have the deputy speakership.
And not only convention should hold, and not only the fact that the tradition has been for the deputy speaker to be with the main political opposition, but we also have to bear in mind that the parliament is not a place where you behave as though you are in nursery school. It calls for respect, it calls for decorum, and it calls for familiarity with the standing orders and general rules and procedures within parliaments. And we have to take note of the fact that the main opposition has, the members of the main opposition that's been there for 3 years plus. And we have members who have been there for longer than 3 years also. So experience comes into play also. I'm sure members of the media would have taken note as to the level the parliament has reached under this current speaker, Manzoor Nadir, especially with the uncouth Kwame McCoy. And to some extent, when Manzoor Nadir is not sitting in the chair and Leonard Schumann sat, it went worse. So we need to have someone who is basically ready to uphold not only the rules, but familiarize themselves and is familiar with the rules also. So all of that ought to be taken into account when we make this decision. And it should not just be about a replacement for Schumann, who has replaced Schumann in the seat in the National Assembly. It's bigger and greater than that. To speak on the voter turnout and the issue surrounding the low voter presence, I would say to that it calls for not only us, but all of us, including the media, to continue with the education and edifying of the people of this country for them to understand that voting is a constitutional right. It is enshrined in the Constitution and it's a powerful tool in any democracy, and more so the democracy of Guyana. And perhaps Tamika can assist in shedding some light, perhaps do an editorial or a story on the importance of voting so that not only our constituency, but Guyanese as a whole can understand the importance of voting. And if I see that article, Tamika, I will surely assist in promoting the sale of your article. Let me turn to why other members are not contesting. The APNU, and if I may isolate it to the People's National Congress reform, we don't believe in one person sitting there all the time. And that's something that runs throughout our membership. And we believe that Mayor Ubraj Narain has served and served well. Mayor Ubraj Narain opted to not participate Further, by way of putting his name on the candidates list, Mayor Obraj Narain has signaled openly his continued support for the APNU. He stands resolute with the APNU. I am confident that he's anti-PPP because the PPP does not hold to the principles that he holds to. And the same can be said for the other persons who are within the other local authority areas opting to not participate. Don't let us run away with the fact that there is any motive there, my friend. I can assure you with the full confidence of all the persons that they continue to love the APNU, they continue to serve the PNCR with distinction, and they will elevate themselves in other levels of service as the party and they themselves see fit and proper for them. In terms of the contract signing at the ministry.
If I can come in right here, on that very point, sorry, but I don't want you to move on from that point. Now, as Ganesh rightfully said, the party has a bottom-up approach when it comes to candidates. The center doesn't determine or dictate who our candidates will be. It comes from the people. That is our approach. I'm not certain who are these candidates you're talking about. I know they were candidates in previous elections. Then in 2018, they didn't run. I see some persons coming back again on the ticket. So I don't know if you expect to see the same set of people elections after elections. That is not our policy. People on the ground, the people, these are local government elections. And so the people in the various constituencies, they choose their candidates. In some regard, you have multiple candidates being chosen. And then a decision will have to be made. But the party doesn't dictate. Our approach is not to dictate who those candidates will be. They will emerge from amongst the people. That is what local government elections are about. In terms of the voter turnout is not low specifically. It is not unique to the People's National Congress reform or APNU. You had general low turnout with regard across the aisle. And so I agree with Ganesh, but in terms of our strategy, we are going house to house. We are highlighting the incompetence of the PPP. We are highlighting how they damage these councils. We are highlighting the impact of the high cost of living, the fact that we now have oil resources and there is no improvement in the quality of life. Look, there is a sea of issues there to be highlighted. And on the other side, we're putting forward our programs, our people-centered program. Our leader has been saying this time and time again, expanding in his budget debate, and on every program, actually, we are expanding on these. Elson Lowe as well has been putting out, he's just mentioned our 50 for 50 program, free university. There are so many issues out there that we can highlight that will urge persons to want to vote for the coalition, but want to vote for the APNU and not the PPP. So there's a general expectation that people will come out. People are under stress. The cost of living is really wreaking havoc on the lives of people, and there are so many other issues. And so we expect, especially in our strongholds, people will come out and support us, and we're confident that we will not only hold our strongholds, but we will gain much more seats and much more support in our stronghold areas.
And Tarika, also, I want to add that to complement all that was said, I will point you to Chapter 2801 of the Municipal and District Council Act, and Section 11 also speaks to a time span for the holding of the office of mayor. So perhaps you can also familiarize yourself with that act, and you will understand clearer as to what the actions of some of our diehard members that are still with us, and I know will stay with us. I know there was a question on the contract signing at the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs, well, Indigenous Peoples Affairs under the APNU, and as a PAC member before, I'm sure my brother Morvin will want to come in also, but I want to make it clear that in the Auditor General's report, the answer that was provided from the accounting officer at that ministry concerning those two contracts were that it was urgent matters that require direct assistance in terms of flooding that happened at the Liliendal hostel, or the dormitory, sorry, the Liliendal dormitory for our Amerindian brothers and sisters. And the justification was given as that for the digging into the contract signing revealed that the engineer at the time, or the superintendent of works, did sign off and verify that the work was done. But what was pointed out, what was documented, and what I fully agree with is that at no time should any accounting officer award or sign an award for contracts to be executed before the award is made by the respective tender board. I have documented that. Both sides in the Public Accounts Committee have documented that. It was noted as the accounting officer apologizing for the act, endeavored for it not to happen again, and additionally, the work was done and was verified. I do not support it. I must say that I do not support that action. The Fiscal Management and Accountability Act does not permit it, and it was examined at length in the PAC. But I'm happy that work was done for the Indigenous brothers and sisters of our country, satisfactorily so too also, to alleviate that situation of flooding that hampered them, that disturbed their lives. I was happy to know that quick action was taken to ensure that they don't suffer. Thank you.
Great. So much. With that being said, I would like to...
Please, just a quick thing. Could somebody give me an update on the court matter filed for the local government elections? I heard that was just discussed, and I thought I would afford an update.
All right. Mr. Sherwin Benjamin.
All right, good afternoon, members. We would have filed a matter last week. The matter was served, and we have a date for the 30th of May before the Honorable Chief Justice at 9.
All right. Who are your lawyers? Who are the lawyers?
The lawyer in this matter is Mr. Lyndon Amsterdam and his chambers.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Before we close, there are two issues I want to bring to the media's attention. In this regard, this has to do with the Indigenous peoples and what's happening at the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs. A petition dated the 7th of February 2023 was lodged at the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs on the 13th of February. That petition calls for the removal of the Tushawan Village Council, the entire Village Council. And it has to do with accountability issues. The caption of that petition is, petition for the immediate removal of Tushawan councillors of Wakapau Village Council on the grounds that they failed to carry out their duties and functions in accordance with the Amerindian Act of 2006 and for gross mismanagement of the village funds and an audit into all financial records and projects undertaken by the current Tushawan Village Council since the beginning of their term. Now, the Amerindian Act prescribes that upon receipt of such a petition, the minister is required within 30 days to signal to the village council, to the village, whether the minister believes that there is merit enough in this petition to warrant the establishment of an investigating committee and launching an investigation with a view to establishing the veracity of the petition. In 2 days, it'll be 3 months since this petition was lodged with the Ministry of Amerindian Affairs. the minister has never communicated to the village her position with respect to this petition. I will make available to the media a copy of the petition. It is very, very serious, and it involves a lot of money. But pinned to this inaction by the minister is the protection of the Tushao, who is a PPP activist and who is a nominee, a PPP nominee through the National Tushao's Council for membership on the Indigenous Peoples Commission. And so Minister Sukai seeks to protect this Tushao from scrutiny so that this Tushao can eventually take up a seat at a very important constitutional commission. And then there is Monkey Mountain in Region 8, where projects, the people of this village wrote to the minister 2 years ago, complaining about mismanagement, complaining about mishandling of revenues. Look, $10 million in COVID grants was handed over to the Tushao. The Tushao took that COVID relief and without reference to the village council, the village general meeting, or anyone, proceeded to buy a truck, which he told the village costed $7 million. I sold a truck like that for $2 million the other day, in better condition. $7 million. And the remaining $3 million, he has given no accountability for it. And again, Minister Pauline Sukai is protecting a PPP activist from scrutiny. This Tushao bought a pickup using village funds. Never told the village that he was going to do so. Just shows up in the village with a pickup and says, I bought this from the money that the village council had. And this begs the question, why is Minister Pauline Sukai protecting these people? Why she herself continues to violate their rights on the one hand, and the Fiscal Management and Accountability Act in MADIA, as I pointed out earlier, on the other hand. But then goes out there and says that the government has no authority, correctly so, to issue mining permits for persons to mine within titled indigenous lands. Minister Sukai needs to do her job. She needs to go revisit the government's decision in Marudi and the government's decision in Chinese Landing to award mining rights on indigenous lands and lands that indigenous peoples have rights to and have applied for as extension. I want to leave these matters with the media, and I undertake to get the petition out so that you can further interrogate this issue in your own time. Thank you.
Thank you. Right, at this time, we will bring today's press to an end. I would like to thank the members of the media for joining and our viewing audience on all our social media platforms. Do have a wonderful afternoon.